Good evening. My name is HT. I'm a medical student at UW-Madison, working with Wisconsin Voices for Recovery to bring you Saturday Night Chat. Saturday Night Chat is a monthly chat that creates a space for people to share their recovery journey and to show people in seeking recovery that they are not alone and that recovery is possible. Today, we'll be hearing from Mr. Matt Trevor, the president of NGU. Hi, good
How you
evening.
doing? Yeah, I'm Matt Traver. I'm president of NGU, but before that, I was someone who struggled with drug addiction for the better part of 25 years. Today, I got almost 5.5 years of absolute sobriety, and I'm just grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. We're also great that you're here and joining us tonight. So, can you tell me a little bit more about your story? Just we can start from what led you to an addiction.
Like most people, the gateway drug for me was trauma. And that I experienced at an early age through sexual abuse. I was about 6 or 7 years old. I'm not going to go into the gory details, but at that moment, my innocence of childhood was over, and then like it caused me to isolate and like shut in and like just remove myself from the world, and then um my growing up, I watched my mom get beat by an abusive boyfriend, who she was dating out of necessity. And then she moved us out of that environment into a even different, even more toxic one, or more dangerous one. And you know early on, and it just got to the point where like I was just my addiction first manifested itself in the form of food, because like I was so young, I felt powerless at an early age, and I just remember the one thing I could control was my what I could eat, you know what I mean? And through that, because I didn't have a lot of friends and the isolation, and I gained a lot of weight, and then it picked apart my self-esteem, and made me feel less than, made me feel like I just didn't belong anywhere. And when I was 14, 15 years old, I my mom moved us out of the environment, and she moved us out to the country. And I was introduced to like keg parties and smoking weed, and like through that, I loosened up and I was able to find my voice, or at least I thought I could, or I did. And after like the drinking and smoking weed my freshman year of high school, it just progressed every summer. Like we were talking about earlier, every summer that school let out, I tried a new drug, and then like I became addicted to that, and that like led me down that path for the summer. It was acid, and then the next summer it was mushrooms, and then my senior year was ecstasy. And then so by I got a 4 year education in drugs all throughout high school. And I never tried anything hard until I was after or I graduated. And I always told people that I was allergic to cocaine in high school, which weirdly turns out I kind of was, if you think about it, because like I got the familiar symptoms. I broke out in handcuffs, felonies, things like that. But I always told people I was allergic to it because I'd seen what it had done to my family. So I tried to stay away from that, because I'm like, well, that's what destroyed my family, so I'll just do this stuff. Um, I yeah, but like, I thought drugs were my solution, because it gave me a voice that helped me loosen up, and it helped me like feel like just one of the guys. It helped me socialize and made me feel accepted, like all of us do when we struggle with mental health. We just want to feel accepted, and like we're part of something.
Uh, Thank you for sharing that story. There's a lot of struggle and difficulty you've gone through, and that it's great that you're now clean and you're actually helping other people to become clean as well through your organization. So it seems like it's been a long journey, and you were also using multiple different substances at the time. And you said it kind of gave you a voice initially as a teenager. So what led you to become clean? Like, what was the initiation that got you to change? What was the tipping point?
Okay, when I was 36 years old, I was basically homeless, addicted to heroin and methamphetamine and the needle. You know what I mean? That's one addiction a lot of people don't understand, or are willing to address, that the needle itself is it's a whole nother addiction, the whole ritual of it, because we're creatures of habit. And everything I was doing was through the needle. But I had gotten picked up on like little ticky tack charges. Like I never got caught with like large amounts. I got caught with like dirty needles or dirty cotton balls, or like a meth pipe. Just paraphernalia. But um, I missed all the court dates, you know what I mean? And so I got bail jumpings, and then like all these little charges compounded to
Hmm.
where they wanted to put me in prison for 6 years. And I had never heard of treatment court or drug court, or some places called specialty courts.
Hmm.
And my lawyer brought it up, and he's like, it's a way to get treatment and address your addiction. And initially he's like, they'll let you out, and that's all I needed to hear, because all I was focused on at that moment in time was using. I always toyed with the notion of getting high until I ran out of dope. But I applied for drug court, and they denied me the first time because they're pretty good at seeing through people's BS, and I was just in their BS and trying to get out, and the judge and the team saw that. But I went back and you know wrote out my speech, and came a little more correct, and they accepted me. And the program of Brown County Heroin Court is what ultimately got me to take recovery seriously, got me in the rooms of the fellowships, got me into intensive outpatient treatment. It got me to address my trauma. It got me to, you know what I mean, understand what the disease of addiction and what I was actually up against.
Right.
Mhm.
Seems like you initially didn't really have a triggering or a onset where you thought I'm gonna become clean, but it was really more of a sequence of events that eventually led you to see that addiction is a disease of on its own that you need a cure for.
Right. And I just wanted to touch base. One thing though, like the first I'd racked up 42 days clean in the beginning of the program, and I wasn't talking about anything. I was just going to meetings, just doing just enough to stay out of jail and to get my form signed so I could appease the court and stay out of jail. And I was, at the time I was in an abusive relationship with this girl, and I had thought it was just like karma and all the things I had done coming back to, roost for me, I guess, so to speak. Like I deserved all the stuff she was doing to me. She was, for lack of a better word, she was beating the hell out of me. But, so I made it through Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. And on January 2nd, she was just on one, and we were arguing. I was like, you know what, screw this. I'll just go to prison. And, but I'm not going to do it sober. And so I called the hotline, for my random drug test for drug court. I went and took my test, and then as soon as I left the building, I went and scored some dope, and I relapsed. And then I went to court, that Friday, because Thursday my PO had found out I was using. And long story short, they put me in jail for a week, and as a sanction on drug court. But in that week, because I had done over 7 years in jail, collectively, and there was a guy in the jail that I used to run the streets with hella, and we all meet people in the drug game or whatever. But this guy was like an actual friend of mine. Like like he was a very good friend of mine. And he got laid down for 20 years um for selling drugs to an informant or something like that. I didn't know the specifics, but I passed him in the hallway in jail. They were about to let me out, and they put me on the GPS bracelet, and the next morning I was going to get fitted for my bracelet. And he's like, they sent me to jail for 20 years. You got to get out of this, man. This isn't for you. And then we went to our different units, and then they locked down the jail. Well, I had found out, you know, why they locked the jail down, because the guy I talked to went in his cell and hung himself.
Oh,
And, I'm sitting in my cell because they didn't let you out when there was a suicide. And they slid my tray of food, through the little slot. And then I'm sitting there, and like jail's got this smell, and it's the tan walls. And I'm looking around, I'm listening to my cellmate tell me the same 20 stories, that I'd heard 100 times. And I'm like, dude, this is not how my story ends, man. Like, I'm not gonna, this isn't gonna be the last thing I see. I'm not gonna die in a jail cell, or, with a needle in my arm. It can't end like this. And then I got out, and I was all in, because we're addicts, man. We suck at moderation. I don't know people who have what I have, and they they go out and have a few beers. They want to go kill themselves without even being aware they're trying to kill themselves. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I have. And so I took that same drive, that same focus, that same determination to get high that I did to find recovery. If
hmm.
that makes sense. But you like that, my friend hanging himself is what ultimately made me take recovery seriously. Because at that moment, I realized what I was up against. I realized it was life or death. It was jails, institutions, or death in that moment.
Wow, man,
Mhm.
that's some very, very difficult things There are some things you've gone through that are, I can't imagine what it's like to be in your shoes. Um,
Mhm.
it seems like it was an eye-opening experience for you. Um, yeah. So again, we're glad that you've gone through the entire process of recovery. So tell us a little bit more about what the recovery itself was like, because a lot of people, even when they want to quit or are thinking of quitting, are also afraid what the process would entail. And what was some of the most difficult times that you had going through a recovery process?
I would say the most difficult times was like, the first 6 months. It's rough for anybody because like once you take it seriously, you're like trying to detach from the people you used to use with all the toxic, party friends and people that just want to, use you to support their habit or whatever. And then you're trying to, get in with the new people in recovery. So like between that first month and that 6 months, you're like on this weird deserted island, you know, and then and then so you feel alone, and then like you're alone with your thoughts. And one things we do when we're in active addiction is suppress our emotions to the point where we're just numb all the time, at least for me. And then, in that 6 month span, I would have like these emotional outbursts, like I would just start crying for no reason, or I'd be angry, but it was just like unaddressed emotions or unaddressed trauma, that was manifesting itself through like tears or anger or whatever. That was very difficult for me because for so long I had ignored my emotions and hadn't addressed anything in the real world or the world of reality for so long because I was in an altered state of mind. And once I started talking about what I was going through, like a big part of my recovery journey was moving into the Oxford House of Green Bay, and I was around a bunch of fellow men who were in recovery. And that like another thing that was really hard for me was finding out that people just wanted to help me with no motives of their own. Like they were motivated to make me be the best version of myself that was possible. And that was a weird thing to understand too, because when you're out there using and selling drugs and doing the things to get it, everybody just wants to use you, man. They always have a motive to be in your life. And to see people just like extend a hand to you and show you love and give you a hug with no motive, that was weird for me for a long time. And it took me a long time to get used to like just getting compliments, getting hugs, just being accepted for who I was and what I was, because for so long, when you're in active addiction and you're a drug addict, you're a fiend or whatever, um, it's very hard, to feel accepted, because you always feel like an outcast or you always feel like a burden. Or you always feel, because we burn bridges and people don't want to talk to us. And, so those were some of the things I struggled with early on in recovery.
Wow, Matt, I don't think anybody has to go through recovery alone. And I'm very glad that you have had some people helping you and that you were
Mhm.
able to communicate with them and click with them. And eventually you've gone through it at the other end. So kudos to you.
Thanks, man.
So if there are people looking at this video today in our channel who
Mhm.
wants to go through the recovery process, what are some of the things you like to say to them? Any advice that you want to share?
Yeah, like I'm just gonna say some things that people told me along the way. Um, Recovery is possible. Like I've been homeless 3 times. I've done 7 years locked up, and there were so many people that loved me that didn't like me at all that just wrote me off and left me for dead. And through recovery is possible, change is possible. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to take time. It's going to be a journey, man. It's not going to come in one day. We didn't get addicted to drugs in one day. So you're not going to get clean and sober one day. You're not going to be recovered in one day. It takes time, but it's so worth it in the end, you know, and like there's a stigma or a saying that, like, and I remember I used to think this too, getting sober is boring. What's boring to me? Sitting outside the courtroom in cuffs waiting to hear the verdict, or sitting in a parking lot waiting for the dope man, or sitting at the bar at last call, standing for count in county jail or prison. That's boring to me. Sobriety and recovery right now, life is beautiful, man. Like you just gotta flip your thinking around, you know what I mean? Because for so long when you're out there using and in active addiction, you focus on the negative and what you don't have, but recovery and being sober today makes me appreciate what I do have. I'm not rich and successful. I'm not going to be a millionaire. I'm not a millionaire, but like I'm grateful for what I have today, and an attitude of gratitude will go a long way. And I know it takes a while to get there, but it's so worth it, man. Like life is amazing once you know what to look for and once you really realize what life's all about. You know, it's not about like street cred and things like that. It's about happy, healthy human connection with people you love and that people you want to grow old with and see, you know, that want what's best for you.
Matt, thank you for that advice. Resonate with many others out there.
Mhm.
Hopefully they'll follow the similar process and go through recovery as you did.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we like to end our evening. Matt, thank you again for sharing your journey with Wisconsin Voices for Recovery. I'm sure that whatever you did, um, you made a lot of people hopeful today.
Thank you, sir. All
All right.
right. Thank you for having me. All
Thank you.
right.
And have a good night.
You too. All right.
Bye.
Bye.